The well-known communist slogan, "From each according to his ability, to each according to his needs," was quite successfully realized in one of the strangest states of the ancient world, the Greek Sparta. The Spartans in their time came to the conclusion that for its implementation does not require any special development of productive forces at all. It is enough to reduce their needs to a minimum. While the rest of Greece was developing science and art, and the nobility sought to surround themselves with luxury goods, the Spartans, eating the simplest food, were engaged in only two things. They were either fighting the enemy or preparing for war. The Spartan state, located in the southern part of the Peloponnese Peninsula, developed much like the rest of the Greek settlements until about the 6th century BC. Craftsmen produced high-quality goods, often expensive and beautiful. The Spartans willingly used them in their households. From the very moment the Olympic Games appeared, the Spartans actively participated in them and won more than half of the prizes. Officially, the Spartans were called Gomians, the equals. In war, they became heavy infantry and acted as a single formation of the famous Spartan phalanx. The laws of Lycurgus fundamentally suppressed the possibility of stratification of society on material grounds. To meet the needs of the Homeans, the Spartans simply captured and enslaved their neighbors, the Messens. After all, a Spartan not only had no right to engage in labor, but could not even go to the bazaar personally. Others had to work for him. Sometime in the 8th century BC, the Red Commissioner Lycurgus arrived in Sparta and urged the Spartans to build a new life. The first thing he did was to limit autocracy and introduce a council of elders. But the king remained, or rather there were as many as 2 of them in Sparta at that time. But Comrade Lycurgus did not shoot any of them, which was, of course, a mistake on his part and a manifestation of intellectual softness. The first thing Agis ordered was to cancel all the debts of the Spartans. The receipts of debt were publicly burned in the agora. The second step was to be a more radical innovation. All land in Sparta and Laconia was to be redivided so that Spartiates and Paraians, the 2 privileged classes in ancient Lacedaemon, would receive the same land allotment. Lycurgus carried out a monetary reform, taking silver and gold coins out of circulation and introducing iron coins instead. The new money had such a paltry value that to store more or less large sums would have to build a whole warehouse, and stealing money or taking bribes immediately became unprofitable, because you can't hide the loot. And iron for money was hardened in a special way, and it was not even suitable for further processing. Outside of Sparta on this currency could not buy anything, and it was simply mocked there. Useless crafts Lycurgus banished, leaving only those that made the essentials. Merchant ships with goods stopped entering the harbors of Sparta, and all sorts of jewelers and goldsmiths did not look within its borders. All luxury goods slowly disappeared by themselves. Lycurgus instituted common meals and forbade eating at home. The Spartans now ate the simplest food at the common table, rather than fine meals at home, lying on a soft bed. Girls were told to forget their pampering and take up running, wrestling, discus throwing, and other exercises. Boys from the age of 7 were organized into squads so that they could learn to live and work together. According to Plutarch, a writer and philosopher, Lycurgus accustomed the citizens to the fact that they did not want and could not live apart, and like bees were in an indestructible bond with society, and all were closely united around their leader, and fully belonged to the fatherland almost, forgetting about themselves in a burst of enthusiasm and love for Sparta. And any attempts to deviate from the generally accepted rules were resolutely suppressed by the guardians of purity of morals from among the conscious activists. Sparta deliberately self-isolated. Spartans were forbidden to leave the country, and foreigners were forbidden to visit it. This was apparently done to prevent the corrosive influence of neighbors. Any events in Sparta, even insignificant ones, were state secrets. Information about them was carefully guarded from neighbors. Traditionally, Sparta was ruled by 2 kings from different dynasties at the same time, which also made it impossible to usurp power and violate the principle of equality. If we look at the whole political system in Sparta, it cannot be considered purely communist. In Sparta, there was an original form of aristocratic republican communism, with 2 hereditary kings belonging to the families of Eurypandites and Aegeades. And according to the laws of Lycurgus, 2 kings, who were always competing for power, entered the council of elders as ordinary, but not elected, but hereditary members of the council. The other 28 members were chosen by the people from among old men, not younger than 60 years old. The judges in civil cases were ephors elected by the people for exactly 1 year. And according to Lycurgus, the people's assembly was offered decisions, which it could accept or reject, if the people would have the supreme authority and power. However, later the aristocracy, dissatisfied with this distribution of power, introduced an amendment which stated that if the people made a wrong decision, the council and kings could reject it and dissolve the people's assembly. Sparta set an example of a radical and definitive resolution of the social question. The laws attributed to Lycurgus stake on the fundamental impossibility of internal conflicts, undermining the civic collective. After Lycurgus' revolution, the ideal of unity and equality of citizens became a real fact of Spartan life, as a guarantee of Sparta's stability and strength. All laws served to maintain civil equality and unanimity of citizens and nothing else. This gave the state unprecedented power, and in the early 5th century BC Sparta led the resistance to the invasion of the hordes of the Persian king Xerxes. And then the question of primacy in Greece was decided in a dispute with Athens, another largest and influential Greek city. The state antagonist and antipode of Sparta, and contrary to many predictions of opponents, Spartans came out of this battle winners, and the victory over Athens in the Peloponnesian War for a time brought Sparta hegemony over most of Hellas. Sparta, existing under the laws of Lycurgus, for a long time remained the most powerful state of ancient Greece, defeated enemies and resolved the disputes of neighbors. And then, once the laws ceased to be strictly observed, gold and silver were brought to Sparta, and among its citizens selfishness, avarice, and craving for luxury spread again, and Sparta lost its power. Sparta as an independent state existed from the 11th century BC to 146 BC, and then was conquered by Rome.